Yo, what's up guys? It's Noah here, and in today's video, we're going to break down the Week 5 Thursday Night Football Showdown slate on Draftkings. We got Week 5 kicking off with the Bears and the Bucs on Thursday night. Should actually be, somewhat of a decent game. I don't think we're going to see like a shootout here. Pretty low total, just a 44 total, but a close 5.5 point spread. Should be a competitive game at least. I'm definitely, more excited for this game than I was for last Thursday night's game. The Jets and the Broncos. This is definitely a much better game, so we will break down this showdown slate. We'll start off at the top of the player pool. We'll work our way down, talk about all the playable options, all the guys that I see that I feel like, at least we can put into lineups, guys that are actually going to be on the field, that are going to play snaps, that are going to get targeted. So we'll break all that down. Towards the end of the video, we'll also take a look at different roster constructions, how I feel like I'm going to be building out my lineups for this showdown slate, who I like at captain, how we should be correlating our lineups, pretty much everything you need to know for this showdown slate. So before we do get started, guys, as always, I would appreciate it if you would hit that like button down below. And if you are new to the channel here, be sure to hit the subscribe button as well. I do upload a ton of NFL content throughout the week. I get videos up for every Thursday night showdown slate. I get videos up for the Monday night showdown slates as well. Obviously, I'm posting videos for the Sunday main slate. Got a ton of NFL content coming out throughout the week. So be sure to hit that subscribe button. Click the notification bell as well, so that way you do get notified every time I upload. You'll never miss out on any of my new videos. And if you do really enjoy these YouTube videos, if you want to get more content from me, I do have stuff available on Patreon. For those of you that are interested, it is linked down in the description. You can check out the Patreon link down below and see all that I do have to offer over there. But yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at Thursday night's game. We'll start off at the top of the player pool. We'll just hit on the quarterbacks first. Tom Brady, 11,200 if you want to play him in the flex, and then Nick Foles is 10K as a flex option. So just looking at the two quarterbacks, I think obviously both quarterbacks are going to be in play here. I mean, I'm always going to say that the quarterbacks are in play. Rarely do I fade the quarterbacks on these showdown slates. Normally you need at least one of them to win, and sometimes you'll even see both quarterbacks be in the winning lineup. If I just have to choose one of the two, I think I would try and get up to Brady. Brady is coming off a huge game last Sunday against the Chargers. Threw for 5 touchdowns, over 300 yards, 369 yards. I think that was a bit of an outlier game from Brady. I think at this point in his career, we're just not going to see those massive, 5-touchdown game, almost 400 yards. Like, he's just not going to do that often. That was definitely a bit of an outlier, but, Brady is still a guy that can go out there and throw for 300-plus yards and multiple touchdowns pretty much any week. Defensively, this is not the best spot for either team. Both these teams are pretty solid defensively. Tampa Bay's actually been really good on the defensive end this season. So, if I have to just choose one of the two quarterbacks, I think I do prefer Brady. I don't mind Nick Foles at 10K. It is a tough spot, though. This Bucs defense has been really good against the run and the pass. Last season they were actually quite a bit of a pass funnel. They were a team that was very hard to run against, but they were a team that you could definitely beat through the air. Well, this season they've been pretty good on both ends. It's not the best spot for Nick Foles, but again, it's a single game showdown slate. It's not like we have other options to go to. I think he is fine at 10K, but I do, think you get more upside from Tom Brady. I like Tom Brady's pass catchers as well. I like them more. Mike Evans, Scotty Miller, Justin Watson, these are the guys I like more rather than the Chicago receivers. So I feel like if I'm going to be playing, the Tampa Bay receivers more, then I'm probably going to have more exposure to Brady. So just between the two quarterbacks, I do prefer to go to Tom Brady. I think both guys are playable, though. If you want to put, both in your lineup, I have no problems with that. I'm never going to, say that's a wrong thing to do, because both quarterbacks usually give you the highest floor just because, they're touching the ball every play. They're usually involved in, every play, whether it's a pass, even dump off, stuff like that. Quarterbacks just have such a high floor compared to receivers and running backs. Sure, running backs and receivers give you more upside, but you're more likely to get 15 to 20 points from a quarterback. Whereas receivers, they do have that kind of, potential, but we've seen floors on receivers. Receivers can go for 7-8 fantasy points, where quarterbacks, that's very, very unlikely. So I do really like both. If I can only choose one, I think I would rather go to Brady. But then you have the expensive receivers, the number one receivers. You got Allen Robinson at 10,600, Mike Evans at 9,400. Chris Godwin, I would mention him, but I don't expect him to play this week. I am recording this video on Tuesday afternoon. I'm going to post it to YouTube on Wednesday morning. Just as of Tuesday, Godwin was unable to practice. He did not practice Tuesday. All signs are pointing to him missing this game. Did not play last week, obviously, against the Chargers. I believe he was out week 2 against the Panthers, so this will be his 3rd game of the season that he's going to miss. They said after his injury, it seemed like it was a pretty serious injury that he suffered. I think that was, I can't remember who they played, or it was a game against Denver that he got injured late in that game, like in the 3rd quarter and the 4th quarter. I'm pretty sure they announced that he was going to be like week to week after that game, that he was going to miss, at least a couple weeks. So I am expecting him to be out this week. Things could change, but I'm just going to go into this slate assuming Godwin misses. So I definitely have interest in Mike Evans. We'll talk about him. Before we do get there, though, you do have Allen Robinson at 10,600. Robinson's been really good lately, and I think, getting Nick Foles at quarterback has seemed to help him. Week 3 against the Falcons, Nick Foles didn't play that entire game, but he started, pretty sure he came in like the second half or somewhere close to that. Allen Robinson did put up a big game week 3 with, Nick Foles taking over. 13 targets, 10 catches, 123 yards, and a touchdown. And then last week against the Colts, also had a good game, 7 catches, 101 yards, and a touchdown. He's played really well with Nick Foles at quarterback. Foles seems to be, locked in on Allen Robinson. I think Allen Robinson, obviously on a single game showdown slate, is for sure in play at 10,600. But me personally, I think I would rather save salary and play Mike Evans at 9,400. It's hard not to like Mike Evans here, especially, due to the fact that he's 9,400, whereas Robinson's, over $1,000 more. Just so far through 2 games this season, when Chris Godwin has been out, like I said, I'm recording this video Tuesday. I'm assuming Godwin does not play this week. With Godwin out week 4 against the Chargers, Mike Evans had 7 catches, 122 yards, and a touchdown. And then Godwin was also out week 2 against the Panthers, and Mike Evans had 7 catches, 104 yards and a touchdown, got 10 targets week 2, 8 targets week 4. Clearly, he is going to be their number 1 receiver whenever Chris Godwin is out, and I do expect that to be the case once again this week. The matchup against the Bears, it's obviously not the best spot, but we can't get really too picky on a single game showdown slate. I really like Mike Evans at his price. I think he is, pretty underpriced compared to some of the other guys. Like when Allen Robinson's 1,200 more, I think that's definitely, a misprice. I think that's a little bit of a mistake there. I think Evans should be priced up there with Allen Robinson. So I definitely like Mike Evans at 9,400. I think he's probably one of my favorite plays overall, just factoring in price. Like I said, Godwin, I don't expect him to play this week, so I'm not really going to touch on him. Obviously, though, if he does play, that's a bump, or that's a downgrade for Evans. Godwin himself could be viable, but again, maybe he comes in here limited. If he does play, I don't expect him to be 100% at all. So probably won't be on Godwin either way, even if he does play here. But then the running backs, we definitely need to, keep, or at least on the Tampa Bay side, we got to keep an eye on their backfield. So right now, both Leonard Fournette and LaShawn McCoy are questionable. Fournette did not play Sunday. He missed their game against the Chargers. And then, LaShawn McCoy did play Sunday, but he got injured, I believe. He didn't play much, but, he's considered week to week. It doesn't seem like LaShawn McCoy's going to play. So really the big one we need to watch is Leonard Fournette. Will he play here? It's already been announced that he is going to be a game-time decision, or he's most likely going to be a game-time decision. If he winds up out, that is a huge boost for Ronald Jones. We saw Ronald Jones have a really big game Sunday with both, with Fournette out and with McCoy, getting hurt in that game. Pretty much with Fournette out, that secured the workload for Ronald Jones. Got 20 carries for over 100 yards. Also got 6 catches, was targeted 9 times. Like, he just got massive volume on Sunday with Fournette out. Even in a matchup against the Bears, a spot that I don't really love, I would consider Ronald Jones a very, very strong play once again if Leonard Fournette does wind up out. Now, if Fournette plays, I am less interested in Ronald Jones just because we don't know what his workload is going to look like. He'll most likely go back to getting probably 12 to 14 touches if I had to guess, whereas without Fournette, there is 20, 25 touch upside for Ronald Jones. Going to get just a ton of carries. They'll use him a lot in the passing game as well. Has a chance to be almost an every down back. They did involve Keyshawn Vaughn last game, and he did get some work towards the end of the game. But I still expect Ronald Jones to be the number 1 to get massive work if Fournette's out. So I'm going to have a lot of interest in him, especially, if Fournette doesn't play. I think David Montgomery is viable as well. With Tariq Cohen on IR, done for the season, that is a bump for David Montgomery. He didn't get as much volume, though, last week as I thought he would. Only 10 carries for 27 yards, wasn't very efficient. Only 3 catches as well, but he was targeted 6 times. This is a brutal spot, without a doubt. This Tampa Bay run defense is really, really good. If I can only choose one of the 2 running backs, I do prefer Ronald Jones. I think Ronald Jones is just a more efficient rusher. You just get more upside from Ronald Jones. I mean, David Montgomery, like, if you watch this dude run, like, it just seems like every run, whether it's up the middle, whether it's a toss outside, like, he just gets 2 yards every play. I don't think I've ever seen David Montgomery break off like a 40-yard run. Like, maybe that's their offensive line. I'm not exactly sure, but it just seems like this dude, he's just so inefficient. Even if he gets like 20 carries, he can only get 40 rushing yards. He still gets work in the passing game, though, so he's definitely in consideration for me. But I think Ronald Jones just gives you more upside. So if I can only play one of the 2 running backs, I do prefer to go to Ronald Jones. And I think, Ronald Jones would for sure be way ahead of Montgomery if Leonard Fournette winds up out. If Fournette winds up out, Jones and Evans are probably going to be my 2 favorite plays overall on this Showdown slate. 2 guys I'd want to have, a good amount of exposure to. But then some of the other pass catchers, like Scotty Miller at 7K, I think is viable here, especially if Godwin is out. Really only if Godwin's out. I'm not going to be considering guys like Scotty Miller or, Justin Watson if Godwin plays. But like I said earlier, I'm assuming Godwin sits, so that definitely makes Scotty Miller viable. He did get 7 targets last week with Chris Godwin out. Got 5 catches for 83 yards and a touchdown. He really didn't do anything at all in the first half, but then came on late in the second half, had like a big 40-yard catch, and then he got like a 20-yard touchdown catch after that. So really all his production came late in the game in the second half, but was still able to produce pretty good numbers with Godwin out. Like, without Godwin, that just allows Miller to play more, to get more looks, and we saw that be the case last week. I would assume that's the case once again. He is 7K, though. It's not like he's cheap. If he was like 5K, I think it'd be a different story. But with him so closely priced to Ronald Jones, I think I would rather go to Rojo in that scenario. Jimmy Graham, I think, is probably a little bit too expensive for me. He's been okay the last 2 games. He's been getting some volume. 10 targets, big game against Atlanta week 3. Got 5 targets last week against the Colts. Like, it seems like it seems like Nick Foles getting starting at quarterback has helped Jimmy Graham. Just the last 2 weeks, getting 15 targets. If you want to go to him at 6,800, he's viable for sure, but it's not like he's that cheap either. Like, I don't think I'm going to be really playing Scotty Miller or Jimmy Graham that much, just because I think they're so closely priced to Ronald Jones, and I would rather play him. Anthony Miller, he's kind of taken a step down. He did have a good game week 1. Didn't do anything at all week 2 against the Giants. And then the last 2 weeks against the Falcons and the Colts, kind of been disappointing. The volume's kind of been down as well. Just 5 targets the last 2 weeks. I mean, he's still their number 2 receiver behind Allen Robinson. At 64, I think I would rather play Anthony Miller over Jimmy Graham. Probably rather play Anthony Miller over Scotty Miller as well. But again, I don't love these guys in this price range. For me, I think I just want to get up to Rojo if I'm going to anyone in that price range. If I have the salary, I'd rather try and get up to those guys. Obviously, even if Leonard Fournette plays, I don't think I'm really going to be going to him. He had a huge game week 2 against Carolina, but I think that was, definitely a bit of an outlier. Even when Fournette's healthy, I still expect him to be their number 2 back. I still expect Rojo, to get a good amount of the carries and a good amount of the work in the passing game. So I don't really want to target Fournette, even if he does play. Then you have Gronk at 5,800, who I actually think is interesting here. He's another guy that's questionable. Like, Mike Evans is also questionable. Like, pretty much all the Bucs pass catchers are questionable for this game, or at least they're listed as questionable. A lot of them were limited in practice on Tuesday or Monday, so we'll need to watch that. Heading into this game, I'm expecting all these guys to play. I am expecting Chris Godwin to be out, though, like I said earlier. But on Sunday, O.J. Howard did get injured and is out for the season, which is actually a pretty big boost for Gronk, and it's pretty much going to allow Gronk to be the number 1 tight end for the Bucs. What is his volume going to look like? I really have no idea. He got targeted 7 times in week 3 against Denver, and then last week against the Chargers, just 3 targets. He hasn't been running many routes, at least not to begin the season. His routes, total routes run have increased the last 2 weeks. But will that continue? I think with O.J. Howard going out, that if anything, that has to help Gronk, in my opinion. That can't hurt him. Just getting one guy out there, or one guy out of the equation that could, take away snaps, take away production from Gronk. I think, with O.J. done for the season, Gronk should be their number 1 tight end. Hopefully they involve him more in the passing game. Pretty much like the first 2 weeks, he wasn't really doing much offensively in terms of, getting targets. He was really just blocking pretty much. He's been running more routes recently, been playing more. I think OJ going out, does help Gronk overall. So I definitely do have interest in Gronk at 5,800. I still think, he's a big touchdown threat. Always when they get in the red zone, I do expect Brady to be looking for Gronk. So I do have interest in him at 5,800. The defenses and the kickers I'm not going to spend too much time on. Probably won't be going to either defense here. I rarely play defenses on these showdown slates because rarely do you see defenses in the winning lineup unless they get like a pick six or something, which is just so hard to predict. So probably won't be on the defenses. I think the kickers are fine. If you're looking for a cheap play that can give you, 8 to 10 points, sometimes more than that, then obviously you could go to the kickers. Darnell Mooney, though, I do want to talk about him. So he's only 4,600, and he's been getting pretty good volume the last 2 weeks. Pretty much been outplaying, Anthony Miller, been getting targeted more than Anthony Miller. 5 targets week 3 against the Falcons, got 9 targets last week against the Colts. At 4,600 as a cheap receiver that has, 6, 8 targets, most likely going to get at least, he should get 6 to 8 targets. I actually have a good amount of interest in Mooney. I think he is one of the better cheap options. Between him and the kickers, I think Mooney just gives you more upside. I know he hasn't put up really a big game yet, but if there's a player down here that could go for like 16, 17 DraftKings points, it's probably going to be Mooney. He could find the end zone here and maybe put up, 5 catches, 50 yards, and a touchdown. That's totally in his range of outcomes. So between the kickers and the defenses, between the kickers, defenses, and Mooney, I would rather play Mooney just as a cheap option. Just looking for a guy that can get, 7, 8 targets, could maybe get into the end zone. There's a path for him to put up somewhat of a decent game. Obviously, kickers don't give you much upside. Like, even a really, really good game from a kicker, you're probably only getting like 13, maybe 14 DK points. I know, I think it was the last Showdown slate. I think it was Monday nights. I can't remember, honestly. I know one of the kickers put up like 16 or 18 points. It might have actually been last Thursday night, the Broncos-Chiefs game. I think one of the kickers put up like 18 fantasy points. I mean, rarely does that happen. Like, you're not going to see kickers put up close to 20 DK points. More times than not, they're putting up anywhere from like 6 to 12 fantasy points. You could get more than that from a guy like Mooney. So that's just my thoughts there. Obviously, if you're built out your lineup and you have 4,200 left, you could definitely just plug in Suckup or plug in Santos. Me personally, though, I'd probably try and find the salary just to get up to Mooney, just because I think he gives you a little bit more upside. Cam Brate, with OJ Howard going down out for the season, will Cam Brate be more involved? It's a possibility. He's always a threat to catch a touchdown. He's always a threat in the red zone. But he really hasn't been involved at all this season. He only got 1 catch last week, and that happened to be a 3-yard touchdown. Could he get, a 3-yard touchdown again? Sure he could, but at 3,800, I think he's just too expensive for me. I doubt I really want to go to Cam Brate. Justin Watson, though, I do have a good amount of interest in as a cheap option, especially if Chris Godwin winds up out. If Godwin does not play, just as a pure punt play at 2,600, I think Watson makes a ton of sense. Last week without Chris Godwin, you did see Justin Watson actually lead the team in offensive snaps. He played 74%, I believe, of the offensive snaps. Did run a good amount of routes. 4 catches, 40 yards. Not the best stat line overall. But at 2,600, it's not like we need him to put up, 30 DraftKings points. If he gets 5 catches, 50 yards, 10 DK points, like that could actually be good enough at 2,600. And there's a chance, obviously, that maybe he finds the end zone and puts up like 14, 15 DK points. At 2,600, assuming Godwin does not play, I think Justin Watson is a really good value. Makes a lot of sense. I don't know if I'd use him like as a captain. I think you're kind of, overdoing it there. But as just a cheap option, a salary saver, really, really like Justin Watson at 2,600, assuming that, Godwin does not play here. Cordell Patterson, they used him a little bit at running back last week. He was pretty much like their backup running back behind David Montgomery. I still don't think I can go to him at 2,200. Really don't see anyone else I want to go to. Keyshawn Vaughn got some time or got some work without Fournette or with Fournette out last week. If Fournette's out and McCoy's out, then I think Keyshawn Vaughn could actually be viable. He got 3 carries for only 4 yards. He did get a touchdown, though. It was a receiving touchdown. Had 2 catches for 22 yards. Obviously, he got into the end zone last week. What is his workload going to look like if Fournette and McCoy are both out? There's a chance you maybe see like a 70-30 split between Rojo and Vaughn. At 1K, I mean, he's not that expensive. Like, even if he gets 7 fantasy points, which is possible, is that going to kill you at 1K? Probably not. I would really only play him, though, if Fournette winds up out. If Fournette plays, I have no interest in Vaughn. But if Fournette's out and Rojo and Vaughn are really the only 2 running backs that they have, then I think Vaughn could become viable at 1K. But that's probably it. Like, that's the cheapest that I would go. Really don't see anyone else down here that I would want to play. So let's talk about roster construction real quick. just take a look at a couple different, lineup builds that I like. I already mentioned it that I really like Mike Evans at his salary. Just assuming Godwin plays, or just assuming that Godwin is out, I think Evans is too cheap at at whatever he was, 9,400, 14K, or 14.1 in the captain spot. Really like Evans. If I am playing a Tampa Bay receiver as my captain, normally, the way you want to correlate your lineups, you probably want to get their quarterback in there. So if I'm playing Evans at captain, I probably do want to get Brady into those lineups. Since we paid up for Evans and Brady, we're going to need some value. So I talked about Justin Watson, who I really like as a value, just assuming that Godwin does not play. We can go ahead and plug him in there. Could plug in Mooney as well at 4,600, and that would leave us, enough to play maybe both or the other quarterback as well. So let's see. If we plugged in Nick Foles and then plugged in Mooney at 4,600, that would leave us 7,500. So then we could play Ronald Jones. So there you go. That's a lineup that I do like a ton. I feel pretty confident in all those guys, especially if Godwin's out and if Fournette's out. I feel very confident in Watson and Evans. I feel confident in Rojo if Fournette winds up out. So, that's a lineup that I do like quite a bit, that I do feel pretty confident in. I think Rojo, if Fournette winds up out, makes a ton of sense as a captain play. He's only, 11-1 in the captain. We saw the upside, the workload that he got last week without Fournette. I probably would only play Rojo in the captain if Fournette winds up out. If Fournette plays, I don't think I'd use him in the captain. Probably would be a flex option. Normally, if I'm playing like a running back at the captain, I really don't see any correlation there. Like you can play Brady with Rojo at captain. I have no problems with that. We could probably build a similar lineup to what we did last time. Maybe play both quarterbacks. Maybe we could get like Allen Robinson in there and Mike Evans. I don't know if we'd be able to do that. Probably wouldn't be able to do that. But let's just plug in. Let's plug in Watson as our cheap value. We got Nick Foles in there with Watson. That leaves us 7,550. So if we wanted to play Mike Evans, then that would leave us enough to play either Mooney, pretty much the same lineup, except you would need Rojo to outscore Evans, which could happen. Sucks we're only $100 short of Gronk, because I would like to get Gronk in there. Let's see maybe if we take out Evans and go up to Allen Robinson. That leaves us 4,500, so then we'd be 100 short of Mooney, which also sucks. But we could plug in one of the two kickers there. Again, I don't mind plugging in one of the two kickers. I would try and find $100 to get up to Mooney, but I just don't see anywhere we can downgrade. Like, we can't downgrade from Foles. I guess we could take out Foles and put in Evans. Don't know if I want to do that, or if I don't know if I want to go that route, though. I still think Foles, even though he hasn't looked great so far for fantasy, he still gives you a pretty good floor just because he's a quarterback and he's just going to be so involved. But I guess we could do that. You could take out Foles, replace him with Mike Evans, and then you'd have enough to play Mooney. So that's another lineup build that you could do that I do like quite a bit. Really, for me, I think I'm going to be playing probably a lot of my captain exposure is going to go to Mike Evans and to Ronald Jones. I think, you could play the quarterbacks at captain. Normally, I don't tend to do that, though, just because I think pass catchers give you more upside. Like, if there's somebody that can go out there and put up, 30, 35. I know Brady had like a 35-point game last week, but that's just not going to happen most times. If there's a guy that can go out there and give you 30, 35, it's probably going to be, Mike Evans, Ronald Jones, the running backs, the pass catchers, Allen Robinson as well. So yeah, that's just kind of what I'm looking at for this Showdown slate, guys. I think I broke everything down, talked about my favorite guys at the top, my favorite values as well, the mid-tier plays I like. I talked about different lineup constructions, who I like at captain. I think we covered it all, so hope you guys did enjoy this video. I really do appreciate you watching. If you did enjoy, hit that like button down below before you do get out of here. Hit the subscribe button as well. Be sure to click that notification bell so that way you do get notified every time I upload. And if you have not yet, I do have more content available on Patreon. If you want to check that out, you can. It's linked down below in the description. Always, the Patreon content's always down there for you to check out. It's optional. You don't have to, but I know there's some of you that want to get more content from me, so you can check out the Patreon link down below. But best of luck on this Showdown slate, guys. Thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you did enjoy. I hope the video helped, and we will see you in the next one. Good luck tonight, guys. Peace.